Hey, JR Storment here from the FinOps Foundation. We are here at FinOps X 2024, and I have the pleasure of sitting down with Mike Eisenstein from Accenture. Hey, Mike. How's it going, man?
Hi, good to see you again.
Good to see you. So what's been your biggest surprising moment at the conference? What caught your attention so far?
Having three VPs from three hyperscalers sitting on stage side by side, nodding at each other's statements. That was a unique moment. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that before.
That is really cool. And they were nodding, but I felt like there was a little bit of disagreement as well around.
There should be. But they're up there because they agree on what we need them to agree on. We FinOps, what we need them to agree on, they're up there supporting. They agree on the foundation, they agree on focus, they agree on what we think they need to agree on. And then for the rest of it, we want them to differentiate and disagree, and that's great.
Yeah, they should make the revenue and the difference on the features, not the billing data necessarily, and everybody wins that the billing data is better. I did think it was interesting that one of them, I think it was James from AWS, pushed back on the question about whether focus was revenue generating, because it's not directly revenue generating, but I think he said that if they show value, then people stay in cloud, so it ends up coming back that direction.
There's a lot of things like that, and Amazon in particular with their customer centricity, put the customer first in everything, have that philosophy that you do good things for the customer and it makes you money. Okay, so having a central team within Amazon who focuses on the billing data or the billing data standards or probably some billing data plumbing that everybody can just use because that's how they do things inside of Amazon is the right way to do it. Very much like what we have with central teams in FinOps. Because you have to have somebody who focuses on this particular domain with this science. It's really so far too much to ask to really distribute and democratize that expertise, in part because it keeps changing. Your statements this morning about the analogy to security is one that I've used many times because it is
the idea that cost and security are similar and that they have central teams and then they also need to have everybody involved. Right?
I love that you put up the email from Bill Gates. That was that was
Did you have flashbacks to 2002?
A little bit. I was new in the industry at the time, and so that was but that was a transformation for the industry because up until then, Microsoft was moving back fast and breaking things.
So you saw the announcements today about Focus 1.0 launching. We had the cloud VPs up there talking about their support. Where do you see Focus plugging into practices with your customers, and where do you think it'll make an impact?
I think it's going to start out as a way to help standardize the data feeds and therefore ultimately standardize the way you can do things like unit economics, which we also saw this morning.
Yep.
It will help to some extent clients compare clouds one to another. But I was speaking to somebody earlier today where they think that's going to be a very big deal. I honestly think that the cross cloud workload mobility thing is a bit of a red herring.
I agree with that. Yeah, I haven't seen that play out really at scale. Yeah.
It's the data and adjacency to other workloads that you need. So for now, I don't think that's the issue, but we do see a lot of multi-cloud. A lot of our clients now are multi-cloud. And so they do want to compare the business case of one to another for a new application, for example, or take advantage of data services in this one versus container services in a different one. And so so I think that will help. I think Focus will help them be able to better calculate that. Okay. But I think there's a bigger potential on the horizon for Focus, which is you've got, with the three cloud providers showing support, and we'll probably get Oracle on board here pretty soon too. I think they are on.
Oracle has already launched native support for Focus. They launched it about a week or two ago as a data export.
That creates a tailwind, or it's more like jet fuel. Like everyone has to do it that way. There is no other way to do it. And some companies will get close and they'll have a translation layer, and some companies will do it. They will, as we get to Focus 1.2 and 1.3 and beyond, and it serves other technologies better. You'll see the SaaS providers start to do it, for example. And now you're talking about $1 to $2 trillion in spend that goes through this, and that's where that I think is going to be pivotal in the downstream value calculations. Okay, so it goes from cost identification, allocation, unitization, and once you get the denominator, so your cost per what? Per widget, per transaction, per ride in Uber, like they were talking about this morning. Cost. So your denominator is kind of the value measure. If you have the numerator that's that clear, now you have a value calculation for a broad swath of technology spend. So that's my impression of it. Now, I've heard other opinions about what Focus could do.
Well, that unit economic bit is interesting. I was talking to one of our TAC members who's got background in capacity management and on-prem, and was saying the thing that he was excited about was that even in that world, when he was trying to do optimization work, that there was still always a debate about what the right metric was for quantifying the value, for calculating the cost, and that we lack sort of a universal technology value set of metrics and dimensions to use. And so as it expands, I think the real power and the vision would be that it's not just about FinOps people having the conversations, it's all across the business. You suddenly have this unified language for these things and the calculations have been agreed and there's no confusion around it.
I think we'll still have a constellation of value calculations, and because each company thinks of it, runs its business differently. They use technology differently. They sell something differentiated in the marketplace. Yeah. I still think we see a constellation of value metrics.
So let's talk a little about the keynotes. You've been in this for a long time. I know you work with a lot of big enterprises. I'm curious your take on what you agree with or disagree with. So this morning we talked about how FinOps has become everyone's job, and kind of like security, you've got the central team, and then you also have all the distributed teams. What are you seeing play out in the field?
I think that's exactly it's exactly the right analogy. I've actually, I'm going to take credit. I've used that many times.
Maybe I got it from you.
Okay. I think it's a very important analogy because a lot of people understand the security paradigm. Okay. You have a central team. They have central tools. They have a set of expertise and possibly certifications that make them unique within their organization. And they're the ones who are keeping up with the constantly changing landscape. Okay. It's everyone's job to concern themselves with it. And we need to push out action and decisions and awareness and everything. Everything I've just said over the last 4 sentences or whatever applies to security just as it applies to
the parallels
cost,
are really similar, yeah.
Right? And so I think that I'll work with clients, for example, who want to do a cost takeout project. Okay, my cloud cost is too high. Can you help me bring it down? And the answer is yes. But would you stop after that with a security project? Like, okay, I cleaned up my firewalls. I cleaned up my admin user roles. I've cleaned out. I've patched all my servers and everything. Now I'm done. I'm secure, and I don't have to do anymore.
Right. It's never done.
Nobody thinks that, and so getting at that. So that's why I've used that analogy to describe FinOps, and I like I definitely agree. The central team, the central expertise, the central tools, the certifications, the awareness of the changing landscape. You can literally have a cloud provider change the rules on you. So you went from optimal one day to suboptimal the next day, and you didn't do anything.
Yeah. So what about that next aspect of cost conversations and FinOps conversations becoming earlier in the product design process? Are you seeing that happen out in the field with folks you're talking to?
Yeah, absolutely. We call that FinOps by design. Okay, so FinOps, there's been a concept of shift left optimization, shift left FinOps. Trying to explain the difference between that and FinOps by design is a little bit difficult, but it's really about considering the cost implications in design work, okay, which is not shift left, okay? Shift left used to be, I'm going to migrate, I'll wait 90 days and see how the machine is running in the cloud, and then I'll reduce the size to what it should be. And shift left was, I'll wait only 30 days instead of 90. That's what shift left was. Very reactive.
Still reactive, just
still reactive.
We're reacting sooner.
Right, so you don't have 60 days of additional waste. Congratulations, that's a good idea. But it's not the same thing as building it in. So there's a concept that's out there called secure by design. So the moniker FinOps by design might not be that creative, but I think it really tells the story very well. You have to treat cost as a first-class metric, a first-class performance metric in your performance, your functionality, your availability, etc., security. These are all considerations. Cost is a peer of those, and so you're doing architecture, you're doing migrations, you're doing divestitures, you're doing any of the things that we do that have impact on cloud cost should have the cost part of the decision-making process. That's FinOps by design.
There was even a story I heard from one of the technology companies here where they were saying that they're taking that so far left in the process that they're actually having the FinOps teams in some of the product pitch sessions where the product teams are trying to get support from leadership to even build the products before they've gotten into designing the products. And they're sitting in there saying, like, can we do this with our current data centers or our current cloud capabilities, or how would it impact our commitments to the cloud providers? And they're having that before they even say, yeah, let's do the product, like so far into it, which is fascinating.
Yeah, we've got cases where the FinOps team can block an application, a new design, a new build, a deployment, if your dev stage did not map to what it needs to as far as the predicted costs, or if you don't have the budget for it. We know your costs are going to go up by $20,000 a month, and that's not in this year's budget.
So what about the next part there, which was FinOps moving beyond the public cloud? How much are you seeing that?
We're seeing that a lot, and it's we have our label for this is full stack FinOps.
Full stack FinOps,
Okay,
yeah,
so
which I think we heard last year from some speakers. Yeah,
exactly. So we've been working on that for a couple of years now. Got some pieces out there. Anyway, the concept of full stack FinOps is.
But that's just FinOps, right? Now, isn't it, or is it different?
It's a way to explain it.
Okay.
It's a way to label it to help people understand, because I think honestly we're still stuck in FinOps is optimization. FinOps is right sizing and RIs. Okay, I cannot tell you how many people I talk to who think that across the industry. Okay, and explaining forecasting, cost allocation, unitization, chargeback, showback, the tooling and the visibility, the empowerment of the people who incur costs to do something about them. That's all FinOps. Yeah. All that stuff again applies to software. It applies to SaaS. It applies to hybrid cloud and on-prem. It applies to data and AI. It applies so the full stack benefits from the functions of FinOps.
Yep. Yeah.
We call it full stack FinOps.
So it's a helpful way to get it into the organization and talk about it.
Exactly.
It's amazing. I think the cloud providers all on stage this morning get how much FinOps is about value and not about cost savings. But we still meet sometimes people in the field who work in the cloud areas that feel threatened by it. Like, you're going to reduce my spend. It's like, no, this is not what this is about. It's about making your customers successful. So the fourth one that came up was around introducing new metrics into the decision-making framework. And specifically, the big one this year is sustainability and carbon-related metrics. How are you seeing that sort of carbon-aware FinOps, carbon-related metrics in FinOps practice play out?
That one is, it's still, to me, and what I'm seeing, it's still bubbling. It's still emerging. It hasn't caught fire yet. I think the corporate goals around carbon reduction maybe don't have enough teeth in most cases yet. We do see this as a nice to have. There's two places where I do see it playing out. Number one, when cost and carbon align, and I can reduce both. That's
interesting.
Great.
But if they're in conflict,
they don't always.
Then they go with cost.
Right.
Yeah.
And the other one is incentivization. Okay, getting engineers to take action being like one of the number one or top 5 most difficult things about FinOps. It's always
in the top.
It's always in the top. But if you can tell some of them, will be more motivated to take action if you show them the carbon footprint decrease than the cost decrease. I still think we see the problem that, I want to take, you tell me I'm wasting $50,000 a month. If I take that $50,000 out and something happens to the application, I'm going to have a hard time justifying that. I'll lose my job over that. I'd rather spend the $50,000 and make it the CFO's problem. Right, so that applies very much to carbon as well.
Yeah. What about the big topic of AI? We talked this morning about that. A lot of folks are talking about how AI can help change the business, but we're seeing much more noise from the practitioner community right now around the cost of AI and how to manage that. How are you seeing it play out?
So far, the costs of AI are still in the niche market. Okay, we do not have. We just announced results this morning. We're doing a ton of work in AI, but that doesn't mean that we have about a bunch of customers buying GPUs and racking them up and spinning up really big projects. There are some of those, but there's not a lot yet. And I think over the course of time, you'll see the models that are just available to download and to modify. The massive costs of the learning will become probably more affordable, both thanks to the way the GPUs are used and the efficiency of the software. It'll become unnecessary for a lot of companies to use it, and they'll be able to use just off-the-shelf models. And so I think that's where we're going to see the biggest adoption of AI. And I think we'll see mostly, large companies with niche use cases actually trying to build their own models. Now, with that said, both of those face very uncertain costs. And in that regard, you said AI for FinOps and FinOps for AI. The FinOps for AI, I think in both cases, is absolutely resonating. People are afraid of those costs, but it's fear of the unknown for the most part. The ones that are incurring the costs, then it's not so much fear of the unknown, but they don't know what the further implications of it.
Well, I had one company here share with me that they had been reducing, or their top-down mandate was to reduce overall cloud costs, and yet they were saying, use whatever AI services you want in the meantime, because they're exploring value of that. And there was a real disconnect because they're trying to get their arms around it, and this one area is spiking up. But the bright side was they're seeing AI sort of be like a gateway drug to FinOps, because it was pulling up costs here and people saying, we need visibility. Oh, you've got this stuff already working over here. We should apply it here. Where else can you do it? So next year, hopefully we'll be back here in San Diego, early June. So what do you think is going to be the hot topic next year on stage?
I think we'll see further broadening of unit costs. I think that's one. I think it's still a stepping stone, but I think it's a hard problem, and I think that the scaling and democratization of the ability to build those is what we're going to see a lot of over the next year. I think we will see still a lot more announcements about AI for FinOps than the opposite by that time. But I think one of the big things, as I was talking about earlier, the jet fuel that Focus represents is who's on board in Focus and what are the use cases that we have. So you had GitLab here. Great to have somebody on stage. We just announced 1.0. I don't know what the timeline has, but will we be at 2.0 by next year?
Right now, they've scoped out to a 1.2. And so I think, in a lot of ways, they're trying to prevent breaking anything. With a 2.0 would be potentially not backwards compatible. So right now, it's iterative improvements so people can adopt now, get the updates as they increase, and not worry about having to change anything going backwards.
I think we will see the first real fruits of Focus coming out next year. And as I said earlier, I think that it has a 5-year arc where it changes the landscape. But next year, you start to see that the front end of that
where it's been baked
that
in.
hockey stick.
Yeah.
You can kind of see it from here, but it's still nascent, but the potential is much clearer. As I don't know that everybody sees and understands the potential of the standard.
Well, it hasn't been around for very long, given how much work has been done on it and how much adoption there is. So, the beauty of it is that it's launching with cloud support, which is really special in this space to have both ends of that. Yeah.
That's game changing.